Hi, my name's Megan, and you're listening to Career Congregation, a weekly conversation around all things career. Every week, I interview people who have done or are doing amazing and inspirational things in their career. I like to feature real people and their stories and struggles, the decisions they made, the rock bottom moments, and the experiences and inner shifts they had that shaped their careers. If these conversations resonate with you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or share this episode with someone. You never know who you might inspire. If you think you know someone who might be a good guest on the show, please also send them my way. And if you'd like to support any of this work more directly, there's a coffee link in my bio where you can buy me a coffee. Every little bit helps support to keep these conversations going. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this week's conversation. Hello. Welcome, everyone, to this episode of Career Congregation. I'm very excited today to be joined by my very good friend, long-time friend, Victoria McEwen. We met before I moved to Australia in like 2013, I think. Yeah, I was exploring and still am a bit more of a nomadic life and trying to figure out where in the world I would land. I'm still on that journey. But I found Victoria because she had a travel blog and I loved it. And it was all about how, because you had lived in the United Kingdom and then you were in Australia.
Correct.
And so somehow I found your travel blog because I used to be like an avid blogger and I wanted to grow my blog. And so I reached out to her like, hey, I'd love to talk to you about your blog and I'm moving to Australia. And then she was wonderful. She responded. And then when I got to Sydney, I think we met for coffee.
We did. And the rest is history, as they say.
Yeah. So welcome. I'm really excited.
Thank you. I am so excited to be here. And I'm so very proud as your friend of what you've created here. And it's been very valuable for me as a friend to watch on, but also, just to be here with you is very special. So thank you for having me on. And I know that you know me for a long time because you used my maiden name.
I did. I know.
You did. This is how you know me. But yes, I have a lot has happened since we first met for that coffee in Sydney.
Yeah, we've both had lots of life happen to us, and then fast forward years later, we both were then living in London, so we got to see each other then. I recently left London, as many of you know. I'm currently in Ireland, soon to be checking out Portugal as well. So just keep adding the stops. But what is a really important objective for me in terms of the growth of Career Congregation podcast is kind of going back to the origin story, which is that Career Congregation was birthed out of me seeing repeatedly with friends, with family, and with clients, people coming in and not being satisfied with work, struggling to find work, being made redundant, being not even being made redundant, just being suddenly fired, or hating their boss, hating their job, not getting what they want from work. And I think it's so important because there are some lucky people that don't have to work, but the majority of people have to spend a lot of their waking hours going to work. And, if you hate what you're doing, or even if you don't hate it, but it's not quite right, everything is connected and that permeates into your very existence on every level, and it affects all of your relationships, your mental health, your sleep, your well-being, all the things. So it's like my passion to help people, even if it feels really far away, to start to take meaningful, conscious actions and steps towards a more fulfilling career that really inspires them. Victoria was one of my original like inspirations, like showing me that there were other ways to work and live and that it was possible. So when I went to Australia, I was like so inspired by this girl who had started a blog, and it seemed like she had just kind of like just taken life by the horns and was like, no, this is what I'm going to do. And that it's that kind of energy that I just love. So when I started Career Congregation, it was originally a weekly call with friends, essentially, and friends of friends who were struggling to find work. So in 2026, well, either struggling to find work or wanting to change their work or, you know, have more meaningful work. So in 2026, I am going to be starting to return to having a weekly or maybe more like a monthly call for the community. So people who listen to the podcast can come, and it'll be like a place where people can help each other, network, and give each other job ideas, et cetera, et cetera. But from that also is a course that I've created, and I've done it with a few clients so far, and it's been really good. And Victoria was one of the guinea pigs when I was starting to create the course, along with some of my other friends, one who is going to come on in a few episodes. And so I really wanted this episode to be like a little bit of a teaser of what it's like to go through some of the steps at the beginning of the course. So if anyone's interested, there will be more information on where you can get the course and where you can do the course. There's going to be a self-paced option, and then there's a more hands-on option if people want to work with me through the course. But Victoria currently is in flux with career. Yeah, as is the case, you know, with so many people. You know, we have long periods where we think, okay, this is it, like this is what we're going to do, and then, you know, the world loves to throw us curveballs and rock bottoms. And so Victoria is navigating through career stuff right now, as a demographic that I originally was targeting with Career Congregation, because I am in my early 40s. I do not have children, but many of my friends do. And so what I see with a lot of my friends in this demographic is they've not worked in a while. They've been the primary caregiver, but their kids are now kind of an age where they're like at school enough. And so I have a lot of friends in our age group who are like, I want to go back to work, but I don't want to do what I was doing before. Or they do want to do what they were doing before, but they haven't done it in a while. And obviously, like, the industry's changed so fast, they're just like really scared.
I love the question, because it's actually really interesting that you mentioned when we first met, because I genuinely haven't thought about that time for so long. And thinking about it now, I feel like it's like a full circle moment, right? Because I'm coming back to that place where I was like, I don't want to do what I've been doing, so something's got to change. But where I am now versus where I am in 2013 is very different. So obviously in 2013, I was traveling the world. I had a travel blog with my partner at the time. And, you know, I was doing different things to earn money. And, you know, it really was an amazing way to live. You know, to be blogging full time, but also then taking contract work when necessary. I had a network marketing business that I was doing online. I would do things with tourism boards and all sorts of different things. And it really did work for about 6 years. And then I basically then, you know, decided it was time to have a baby. Went through some health challenges, got pregnant with my first son, and moved to London in 2018. And that's obviously when we sort of reconnected in person. And then having children, I've since had 2 children. So I had my son in 2018, I had my daughter in 2020. And the second I had my children, everything changed, because I was always sort of thinking to myself, well, what am I going to do when I have the kids? Like, I was very fortunate that my partner had an amazing income that was allowed me to stay at home with my children, which, you know, is not lost on me. And I know not everybody gets that opportunity. So when I had my son, Jackson, I sort of just threw myself into parenting. But there was always this bit in the back of my mind, like, you're not going to be completely fulfilled by just being a mom, staying at home. And so for the whole time that I was at home, pretty much full time with my kids, so like the majority of the last 7 years, there was always other things that I was doing. So, you know, I sold products on Amazon for a while. I wrote a kid's book. I did some freelance marketing. But there came a time around, well, it was sort of the lockdown period, really, where I was like, do you know what? Why am I trying to do this stuff that is career based when really my most important job is to be at home and be present with my children? Like, I feel like it was a societal pressure to be like, do it all, have it all, you know. And I feel like I never wasn't doing any one thing well. So I sort of stripped everything back again and really focused in on parenting. And, you know, I had some family loss through the lockdown. My stepfather passed from cancer, and that again sort of gave me some perspective. And then I went through a divorce. Well, I'm going through a divorce. I'm pretty much there now, but going through that, having been a stay-at-home parent, having had no real firm career for over 10 years, having skills but not knowing how to use them or utilize them, or where do I even start? And so I'm pivoting again, but in a very different season of my life. So both of my children are now at school. They're 7 and 5. My son's 7, my daughter's 5. And I feel like I'm at a complete crossroads. Like, I feel like I'm right at this point where I know I have skills, I'm just not sure what to do with them. So what my current situation looks like is I work part-time in retail, which I absolutely love. Like, I love it. And it's like, I love working in a store where I'm customer facing. So I'm doing that a few days a week. I'm still doing freelance marketing. I've started a podcast with a friend to talk about, you know, motherhood and all the things that come with it. And that has been a really good creative boost, like, despite the fact that it's not paying me anything. Like, I feel like from a creativity perspective, it's really helping. And then I'm sort of figuring out, okay, well, what do I do now from a career perspective? Do I go back into full-time work? Do I continue doing self-employment? Do I continue working part-time in retail? So lots of questions to ask. And yeah, so I'm at this crossroads. And I will say, when you did the career congregation group work with us, I at that time had taken a contract role, 3 days a week for an agency. And it was my first like step back into the workforce in a like office environment. And I can honestly say it was 2-3 months of hell. And you know, I took the role because I needed the money, but then I very quickly realized, I was like, this is absolutely not right. Like, it was visceral.
It was
Like, I was like,
very bad fit. It
was an extremely bad fit, but it was a really valuable lesson in that, you know, when you're working from a place, or when you're trying to get work from a place where you're feeling like pressure to sort of quickly, okay, I need to get something, even if it's not right, I'm going to take it, which is what I did because it was necessary at the time, but it gave me a huge amount of clarity. And those group sessions were so valuable. Like, honestly, I can't tell you. I mean, you were there. Like, you guys helped me make these like big decisions, really, because it was walking away from a paycheck that I really needed at the time, when, you know, you've got legal bills and everything else and 2 children to look after. But like, yeah, it was huge. And so I feel like I know now what I don't want. And it's really now about finding something that fits into my lifestyle, which is, I'm a mom, I need to be available for my children, but I also need to find something that is, you know, fulfilling and pays me, you know. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
That's where you're at. Yeah, I will say something that you touched on, which I see a lot and I really try to help people with, because there's obviously like practical career stuff, right? That we've all heard, and you can go to a career coach and you can have the like, know your strengths, know your this, know your that. But when your nervous system is dysregulated, so basically when your nervous system is dysregulated, the part of your brain that makes logical decisions is off. So when you're activated, when you're in fight or flight, your amygdala is not online. And so you will be acting from a place of like desperation, survival energy. And
Yeah.
so that's probably the energy you were in when you accepted that job, and then you were not ever in a calm, good, grounded place with that role. And the one of the individuals who managed or supervised you, whatever, was an extremely triggering person. And that was a whole new set of stuff, because what came with that also was something else I do a lot with clients, which is a lot of boundary work.
Yeah.
And this is someone who clearly wasn't used to having someone who was freelance on their staff and didn't respect the autonomy that you needed as a mom to be able to come and go and get your kids, whatever, and work from home a bit. This is like an old school person who he just was treating you like you were like a normal employee. And that was a whole
It was horrible, to be honest. And it was, yeah, like it was treating me like an employee, but employed me as a freelancer. And it was like this very strange, like, situation where I felt like I was like had to be in this box of what he wanted and needed, but then the contract didn't look as that role really was like. And I feel like that was it was a really steep learning curve. It was very important. It was a good important lesson for me, and I'm glad it happened. At the time it felt really hard, but I'm also glad that obviously I had the support of you and the others who really helped me just like set those boundaries.
We were really lucky to have Kelly, who was also a guest. Kelly is seasoned like in the corporate world, and she knows her stuff inside and out. And we all had our feedback for you, but she was like, get out.
Yeah,
she was like,
absolutely.
Don't work.
She was like, right now, like that's it. And it was really empowering though, because I think what happens is, just like you say, when you're living in that place of fight or flight and you're doing it because you know you need to be doing it, essentially, it's very, very hard to get that clarity, like you said. Like, I mean, I was like a rabbit in headlights, so I didn't know what to do. So having guidance of other people who had skills and experience in different areas was invaluable, honestly.
Yeah, and then there's also like the understanding that when you do get into a more calm and grounded place, like when you can regulate your nervous system, have a good night of sleep, like have a meal, like really think it through, when you closed that door, when you exited that place, you immediately had other things come in. And so like, you know, I really like looking at like the energy of how these kind of things happen. The expression of one door closes, another door opens. It's not just a woo-woo kind of expression. Like,
not
it's
at all
genuinely true, right?
Yeah,
like
definitely.
Yeah, and then you landed where you're working right now, which you absolutely love, but you still also have capacity to do other and more things as well.
Yeah, and I think a realization I've actually sort of really come to in the last 24 hours, weirdly, with the timing of this episode, is that I actually really enjoy doing multiple things to earn money. And I think this is where I look back on that time when I originally met you. You know, there's something that is, I remember Marie Forleo talking about multi-passionate entrepreneurs, because that's what I realized. I have neurodiversity, I have ADHD. It doesn't define me, but it does mean that being in a rigid working environment really doesn't work for me on a lot of levels. And things like contracting, freelancing, you know, working part-time in different settings, it is really good for me. And obviously having a creative outlet with the podcast as well, like, it's utilizing my skills, but it's also giving me multiple different streams of income. And I think that's kind of where I'm leaning now. It's like actually embracing the fact that that is how I work best. And actually being okay with that, because I think there's been this big like monkey on my back saying, well, you need to get back to full-time work, Victoria. You know, you've got 2 kids, how are you going to support them? But you can earn what's quote unquote a full-time income by doing multiple things, you know. I'm realizing that
potentially more, like, earning potential is higher with multiple streams of income, if you will. And that is very much what you just described. That is also, for me personally, a way that I've always operated. Like, I definitely would define myself as like a Jane of all trades. I worked in like so many different marketing roles over the years, forever and ever, hospitality and marketing and like PR, travel, like it's all the things before I buckled down and trained to be a therapist. And then throughout my training and when I qualified, and this whole last year when I've been doing the podcast on the side, I have been so clear with everyone. I don't want to be just a therapist. And I say just a therapist in the same way that you said you didn't want to
just
be
a mom.
Yeah. Like the world has changed, right? The world has changed, and we are not in a society anymore where it's rare that people have the one job that supports them for their whole life. So I think you are actually much better set up going forward into this crazy, rapid paced, evolving workspace if we have many skills. And big companies are, I'm seeing it so much with a lot of my clients as well. Big companies are becoming a lot more reluctant to bring people on to be full-time employees, and they're actually much more likely to hire people in contract roles than in full-time capacity. So I think that's great. I remember when I was younger, when I had a salary job, like it was one of my first jobs, and I very quickly was like, this fucking sucks. One, I wasn't stimulated. It wasn't the right role for me. Like it sucked. I had a big, horrible boss. Treated me like it was like Mad Men. Like he made me go in and make coffee for all the guys in the boardroom. It was so, I was like, never again. Oh, I quit. I hated that job. But anyways, I just remembered the salary that I was on. And I know I was new and it was entry level, but it just didn't resonate. Like I was like, this, 5 years in the future, maybe it will be a little bit higher, but even that still sucks. And I was like, this sucks. And it didn't take me long to work out that if you are self-employed, I mean, yeah, you have to hustle and whatever, but the earning potential, if you're freelance or entrepreneur, is potentially unlimited. But if you're in a salaried role, you are locking yourself into a box, and that's all you're going to earn, unless you also have side hustles. But if you're giving 40 plus hours a week to one role, like there's only so much energy that we have,
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And I think for moms as well, like speaking to like how my life has looked over the last 7 years, you talk about working in the pockets of time that you have, like very limited amount of time. You're talking like evenings, nap times. And I remember thinking to myself, like, how am I going to do this? But then gradually you sort of find what works, a rhythm. And as your children get older, naturally that feels easier. And I think what I wish I'd known when my children were younger, like babies, like, what, sometimes it's actually okay to just do what the most important thing to do is, and just be there for your child in those very early days, because that's time you don't get back. And essentially you don't know how much time is coming in the future, because you're like, oh god, I've got to scramble. And that's how I felt. I felt very pressured to be all of the things. So I think what I'm trying to do now is be a mum when I'm a mum, and then sort of figure out a way that I can sort of puzzle piece a career around that, because that's my most important job. That to me is my most important job, and it will forever be my most important job. So I want to be fulfilled and have a career and be stimulated and be creative, but it's not to the detriment of that. So I think what I'm finding is there are many more opportunities than I realized. Like I found clients on Upwork. Most of my freelance clients have been through friends or connections that I already had.
Yeah.
And I think that is really valuable. It's like if anybody listening is sort of wondering how to get started, ask the people that you know, because there's going to be people that that are looking for the skills you have. Like example, how I got my retail job, it was through a client I had for email marketing. She opened a second store and she needed someone to work in the store, and I was like, I'd love to work in the store for you. And that's how that sort of happened, you know. And then
Yeah,
she's
that's one
developing another business
of
that's going to
advice.
hire me. Yeah, like,
Yeah.
and so her third business that she has is now doing events, and so I'm going to help them with hosting events in the new year. So like that's something else, and I've like adding all these bits and pieces into my life. And yes, it's difficult to sort of manage everything, but I prefer that. Like it's more stimulating for my brain
Yeah.
than just the 9 to 5 grind. And I found getting back into that contract role, the commute, like everything about it was
I was
just
just gonna say it's
hellish.
also really helpful if you can find ways to not have to be part of the societal commute every day, the
Yes,
9 to 5,
it
because
was
that
awful.
really is soul destroying. It really is.
That drive to and from work was probably one of the worst things about that role. Because originally I was like, oh, maybe it'd be quite nice to like drive into work and drive home. No, it was awful. And I get that for some people that's fine, but for me, it was just like I don't want to be in this car for 40 minutes when I could be at home with my children, or
Yeah.
when I could be, you know, doing a workout or whatever it is. Like I just feel like that style of working is becoming more and more outdated.
Completely.
And I think even just hybrid working that majority of companies are offering now is just so much healthier for us. I mean, I'm sure you see it as a therapist, like, you know, to have a balance in life is so important.
Yeah, I actually can't think of anyone I know personally or professionally who goes into an office 5 days a week anymore.
Hmm.
I definitely people who their workplace is trying to increase the frequency and they're moving it from like 1 or 2 days a week to the expectation is like now 3 days. But there's a lot of pushback when companies do that. And I think we've seen as a society, no one needs to do that. And it's a waste. It's a waste of time. It's just a
Yeah.
waste of time. So society is, reshaping itself to fit that, because the going in 5 days a week, it just doesn't make sense anymore. It really doesn't.
No. And
Yeah.
I look back on roles that I've had where I was doing that, and obviously I was a lot younger. And it seems just crazy to me now that I was traveling, especially when I was living in Sydney, I was traveling, you know, a solid 45 minutes commute to and from work 5 days a week. Like, and I think
Yeah.
the pandemic really showed us like how much more effective a lot of people can be from, you know, in a work from home environment, remote working environment. So yeah, I think that's where I'm leaning towards continuing on the path of finding what I'm good at and really leaning into that, but obviously making it work for me from a remote perspective, work from home perspective, perhaps contracting. But yeah, it's a journey, and I'm not at the end of that journey, and
Yeah.
I'm just beginning again, which is
Yeah.
so exciting
Well,
in
and
lots
that's
of
what we
ways.
do. That's life, right? We have continuous cycles of evolution and
Hmm.
restarting and restarting and restarting. But each time you're coming at it from a different angle and you have even more skills. And even that role, which, you didn't love, we say like, there's no regrets, there's no wrong choice. It's just, it was a value, it was a learning experience, right?
Definitely.
It was a huge learning, and now you can add to the list of like non-negotiables,
Yeah.
things that absolutely are important to you. So if you came to me as a client, like that would be one of the first things that I would have you do is like make your list of non-negotiables. Absolutely hard line, because what I see so often is people will get really clear on your passions. And when a business is establishing itself, usually it will have like 3 or 4 content pillars and like company value pillars. And I like to do those for people personally so that you know what your sort of value system is that you're working with. And that can help you refine and make decisions as to like, well, does this company tick my boxes, like ethically, morally? Does it light me up? And what I see is when a lot of people get those things figured out, then they'll get an offer, but there will be something from the non-negotiable list that's part of the offer. And so it's really good to have all of that written down, because that's like that's like it's like a test, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, and it happens in dating a lot too, right? Like people
Yeah.
see this when they're going out to date, like it's like the perfect person, but like, you know, there's like the one thing, you know, and they're like, oh, I really want to go out with them, but like, no, they.
Well, this is interesting because this actually happened to me recently. So, all the time I am sort of like on the lookout for roles. Just I always am sort of keeping my eye out because you never know. Like, and I just think, you know, I'd never say never to anything. And a recruiter actually contacted me about a role, and you know, everything sounded great. But she did say, she was like, I will preface this conversation by saying it's 5 days a week in the office.
Mm.
And
And
I
you
was
can't
like,
do that.
and straight away I said, look, I don't think that's going to work for me because I need flexibility around my children. Um, and then she somehow managed, I mean, she's a very good recruitment agent, clearly. She somehow managed to convince me to really just go and see them anyway, like go and meet them anyway, go and have a conversation anyway. And I was like, you know what? Okay, like it'll be good practice. I should have called you first. um, but so I
I
went
mean,
and
if
I
there's
had
really no wiggle room on that, then like it's at that point it should just be a no, because otherwise it's just a waste of your time, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
But it really, it was it was such an interesting thing that happened because I went, I met them, they were very nice. I had a tour of the building. It was a cool place to work. Like I was like, look, if I've got to come to an office, this feels nice. I mean, I wouldn't mind coming here. Um, And then they invited me to come back and do a presentation, which I did.
Okay.
So I met with the met with the MD, met with the sales director, like all of this, right?
Mhm.
And then in the interview, in the second interview, the MD said, you know, so like, you know, have you got any questions? And I said, well, I do, because when I first was approached about the role, I was told like non-negotiable, it's 5 days a week in the office. And I will say, like, that is an issue for me. And I thought to myself, well, let's see what happens. And so obviously they then came to the table and asked me what my good would be. And I told them. And very quickly it became apparent that we were not on the same page. So I should have listened to my gut at the
What
beginning.
your good would be, like,
Yeah. So what my good would be. So
or like
what if,
what would be ideal for you.
yes,
Okay.
exactly.
What did you
And
say?
and I basically said, well, look, I need to be able to pick my children up 2 days a week. And in all honesty, that isn't a huge amount to be
No.
asking for at this day and age. And so basically it was okay, well, they offered me the job, I accepted the job, and then they retracted the job because they knew that I wasn't going to be able to do what they were wanting me to do.
Mm.
And I know for me, I would have started that job and probably felt the same way as I felt in that contract role. But again, I feel like I was at a time where I was really being squeezed on a personal perspective, from a personal perspective, on what's going on. I need to be in a career, I need to have something, and I sacrificed my own values again.
Yeah.
Like,
How
these are
recently was
lessons.
this? How recently was this?
Oh, this was like 2 months ago.
Okay. Okay. That's positive though that happened. I feel
Yeah.
like that means that like the next thing is close.
Yes, agreed. So again, it was but I'm just grateful that it played out how it did, because it reaffirmed for me what I'm not willing to compromise on from a
Mm.
work perspective. And it's not to say that I'm not open to opportunities, but it is to say that I have a boundary when it comes to being able to pick my kids up from school 2 to 3 days a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, as parents, that's tricky to navigate in the working world.
Yeah. I would say so that like the sort of timings and like going into the office and working from home, that and salary,
Mhm.
and we'll just say pay because it's probably not salary. Um, but like an hourly rate or whatever, rate, pay, whatever. Those are the two biggest ones, because I see a lot of people when they start doing this and they start applying and they start getting really good offers and like stuff starts coming in, like the salary will be like a little too low, or it'll be like the perfect position, but it's like 10K less than what they'd be willing
Yeah.
to accept. And so I think when that starts happening, that means you're getting quite close.
Yeah.
So yeah, so
Yeah.
that's positive.
It is very, yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I would definitely, I think it's also, there's a lot of power in like writing everything down. So you have like a really clear idea of kind of the kind of work that you want to do, the environment that you want, the times that you want, you know how much money you need to be making. So putting all that stuff pen to paper and like your non-negotiables on a piece of paper, like I tell clients all the time, when you write it down, it's like you're writing your order for the universe. And it's really, I don't know how it works, but it's amazing, and it really does. Like you
I'm
write,
going to
write
do
your
this because I don't think I've ever done that for about a career like work opportunity. So I'm
yeah.
definitely going to do that for sure.
Yeah, it's really powerful stuff. So there's that. I think when we were first touching on the career congregation stuff, because you were in that like horrible contract thing, I was with you. I was trying to really, really focus on like nervous system regulation.
Yes.
I was like, you're so spun out right now. You're not going to
Yeah.
make any clear. And you were like, okay, well, what do I do to like, I was like, oh my God, I don't like, you're really,
It was really testing time. I feel like if anything, like, and I have still been going through it recently, but I feel calmer now. Whereas I think when I was in that role, it was difficult to see which way was out. Like it was like I'm walking through the fog and my hand's out in front of me, but I cannot see a thing. Like that's how it felt. And I
yeah.
remember you saying that to me, and I was like, yeah, like I don't know. Like I don't know how to regulate myself. I don't know how to regulate my nervous system at all.
Yeah, and I think also in situations like that, something that society and like particularly parents, like I don't want to have to like throw everything on mom and dad, but like it's very true, because we're so obsessed with safety and security, right? Like we always want to know where our next meal is coming from. It's the societal kind of advice of like, well, don't quit until you have something else lined up. But I am a coach who will not give you that advice, because
Yeah.
I think if you're in a place that's compromising your well-being, you need to leave. And that's
Yeah.
all there is to it. And you might not have a safety net. And that's really scary. And for people who've never done that before, like just jumped into the abyss, they're like, what? Why would I do that? But if it's going to if it's going to improve your wellness, I will urge that every time. I think staying in a situation that's like killing you, it's not the one.
Yeah.
And yeah, people end up staying in relationships and jobs way too long, like way
Oh,
too.
agreed.
I think as soon as
Absolutely.
you start getting the whisperings of something else, you need to not ignore that. And this has been a repeated theme in all of these episodes when I talk about this with people, is those whispers, those like urges, not gonna go away and not gonna get quiet.
Well, I can tell you right now, it wasn't a whisper, it was like a scream in my head. Like, this is not right. You need to get out of this role immediately. And I had the feeling that the role I accepted recently would be the same. And so I had the same feeling.
And
Like,
never ignore that.
no, and it was like it felt the same. It felt the same in my body. It was showing up in the same way in how I was feeling, like as the date approached that I was going in to do this handover. And it was just interesting that the universe basically said no. It wasn't me that made the decision, it was them, and it was the right thing. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
so
and when we ignore it, if we stay in a situation that's not right for us, oftentimes the decision will be made for us. Like, I have a friend who's French, and what did she said to me a while ago when I was like burning myself out, and then I just had a day where I just couldn't do any of the things, and I was like, I think I'm getting sick. And she was like, if you don't schedule a break for yourself, it will be scheduled for you. And I was like,
wow. Profound. Yes. And that is so true. That is so true of everything in life, I think.
Yeah.
It's like, if you don't prioritize, like you've always said, if you don't prioritize your well-being first and foremost, because you can't pour from an empty cup as well.
Yeah.
And I think that is so true.
As a mom, especially as a mom. And you're setting this example for your children too. Like, you want to show them that, like, you can figure this out, you can do this. and you like don't stay in the wrong situation because it's not good for you. You
Yeah,
know, so
absolutely.
you're modeling that for your children.
Yeah, I mean that is such an important thing to me. And that's kind of how I also birthed this podcast. It was purely from a conversation with another friend who is a mom. And we basically just said we should do this. And we called it Fine-ish because I feel like many of us as women, moms, we're walking around telling everyone we're fine, but actually we're not fine. And there's a lot of things going on, and the mental load is crippling a lot of the time. And we just carry on, we just continue. And like you say, you get to a point where something's going to give, and whether it's your health or it's your relationship or even your career or whatever it is, something's going to give somewhere. And so
Yeah.
I think my goal in life now is to model, healthy boundaries for my children, to modeling finding joy in what you do for work, and doing it because you love it. Like, they see me going to work at the shop and I love it. And even though I'm working in a shop, but it's
a really
fulfilling.
cool shop.
It is really cool.
It's
very
really cool, honestly.
It's
Like, I really
very
want
cool.
to go visit. It looks, every time you do posts from there, I'm like, oh, this place looks awesome.
It is. It's amazing. And that's the thing. It's like I didn't envision this is the journey I would take, but I'm very grateful to be in this position right now where I'm able to do something that I really genuinely enjoy doing.
Yeah, and you're open.
Yeah.
Is important. And I have to say, I want to touch on what you said when you said about being just a mom.
Oh yeah.
I think that the choice you made to stay at home with the kids, and I know that this is like this is going to be a hot take and like can be very controversial, like everyone's got really big opinions on like working mothers and what they should do or what they shouldn't do. But as a therapist who has spent a lot of time exploring things from a psychodynamic lens, so psychodynamic is your development, your early development years, like how you develop from infancy, well, actually from the womb up until your brain is adult brain. Being with your kids, giving them your full attention in those early years is priceless. It's absolutely priceless. So I just want to commend you for that. It is the most important job. And it's not just about you feeling like split or like, should I do this? Should I do that? Da, da, da. What you did for them is so valuable. Honestly, it's literally priceless. And that is making the world a better place because you have two wonderful children who have been fully attuned with a parent. And a lot of people in society don't get that.
Yeah.
And that just leads to adults who need to spend a lot of time doing a lot of work on themselves. So you've already set up two really well-rounded, fully attuned, like they're gonna be so much more set up for a secure attachment and like good decision making and all of that as adults. So that is you making the world a better place by
I really appreciate that that recognition, because I feel like I didn't want to be a mom who was working and raising babies, and I was very, very fortunate. And I know it's triggering for a lot of people. It really touches a nerve because not everybody has that opportunity. And like I said, it is absolutely not lost on me that I was very, very fortunate to be able to stay at home with my kids. But that's not to say that there aren't people who are also in my same position who still chose to go to work anyway, and didn't want to sacrifice their careers and didn't want to take a step back and raise their kids. So it works both ways. And I think I see it in my children now with, their levels of resilience, their levels of confidence, like how happy they are. Like when there are challenges or, my daughter started school, it was a bumpy start, but I had the ability, because I work around them, to be there for her in a capacity to sort of support her through that. And I know that I will never regret being at home with them as much as I was. I would never regret that, because I can always, I'm 43. I've still got a huge amount of time to sort of develop a career again. I could do something completely different and start from scratch. Like, that's totally possible at this point. but I was never going to be able to go back and do that again. So yeah, I appreciate that comment, because I think it is important, and it's okay for people to want to do that. Like, I think there needs to be more mothers that are able to stay at home. Like, how can we as a society support mothers more so they can stay at home?
And I mean, I do appreciate that it is from a place of privilege that you had that opportunity and that you took it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of moms that do have to go to work right away. Like, I really struggle with it with my peers in the US. I find it's like Europe is, look, every country has its issues, but it's really hard. Like, I hear so many horror stories, and even like my sister, like, you get like 7 or 8 weeks.
Is that, I mean, the thing that, so I breastfed both of my children long term. And I remember having a conversation with a colleague in the States. I used to do a lot of work with a company based out of Arizona, and there's no way you can breastfeed exclusively in the States. And to me, that is a really big issue, because, you know, I know that not everybody can breastfeed, and I get, again, hot topic, you know, triggering for a lot of people. But if your situation means that 6 to 8 weeks after your baby, your infant is born, you have to go back to work, that's going to make breastfeeding on any level, even if it's, you know, half and half, or, you know, formula or whatever. Like, how on earth are women are supposed to do that? Like, it's impossible. It's an impossible task. And I just remember thinking, wow, okay, like, this is crazy. Like,
but also, like, that's such so one, your body is still fully recovering.
Yes.
However the baby came out of you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Whether it come out the sunroof or whatever. Like,
you're recovering physically and mentally. Like, the changes to a woman's hormones after childbirth, it takes like a year before you feel, I mean, and I've never had kids, but I know the biology, like the science behind what happens to your hormones as a woman. And it really takes like a year for them to be kind of where they were before you got pregnant again, because you have such a surge of new hormones as soon as you're exposed to your newborn baby. Like, and that bonding period is so critical, again, from a psychodynamic lens. It's so critical. And so a mother and a child being separated at that age is traumatic for children. And so
it's so unnatural. Like, everything about it is unnatural.
Society of like not fully emotionally healthy, well-rounded people. And it's very dangerous. Like, it's not good to do that to a whole society. I mean,
it's very scary for the US, for sure, because I mean, I see there are countries in Europe that are doing it far better than the UK is. I mean, I think, you know, as a whole, the UK, you know, it's okay, but I mean, I look at childcare, like,
as bad as the US, but it's compared to like France, it's
right.
Awful. France is amazing. If I ever was gonna have a kid, I would figure out how to be French.
And also, like, I think not, I mean, I was in a same-sex relationship, but, you know, we when you look at roles, we were probably more traditional than most people. But like, when you look at paternity, maternity, whatever you want to call it, like, the fact that they get equal for both parents, like, that's so important, like, so important. But yeah, I mean, I think as a whole, you know, mothering has made me more employable, I will say, like, because I feel like I have skills now as a mother that I didn't have before. So that is empowering to sort of use it from that perspective, because I think as mothers, we kind of dumb down like our abilities because we've been at home for a long time. But I think it's made me more employable, because, you know, I can negotiate with a toddler. I can do anything.
Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah.
So true. I actually just wanted to give one more example of what, like, the most amazing that I've heard. One of my guests who I had on recently, Dan, he is living in Sweden now. So him and his partner, they used to live in London, but his partner, or his wife, is Swedish. So they moved back to Sweden a while ago, and now they've got a little one. And they're working through their what did he call it? He called it paternity leave, but it's basically like, it's in Swedish, it's the maternity and paternity leave that's given when you have a baby is given to the baby, not the parent. So the baby gets 450 days of fully paid baby leave,
Wow.
right?
That's amazing.
And that can be attached to one or both of the caregivers, and divvied up between the caregivers as they see fit. So him and his partner were kind of working through that. I mean, that's like a year and a half. Like, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
That's a
And
gift. That's a gift to that child. Absolutely.
she works for 2 months and then she takes a month off and then he works for a bit.
Yeah, wow.
It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Like, that's a really good model. I want to see
Yeah.
more of that.
Yeah, totally. As a human race of people, we need to do better as a whole to be able to give those opportunities to parents and children, because it impacts our children.
And
It really
which
does.
impacts our society. It
Yeah.
really does, you
The
know, and
knock-on
like,
effect, for sure.
yeah. So I think that's really important. But back to career focus, I do think as well, as you are a mother, it is potentially worth exploring. And it's good that you're doing the podcast about being a mom. I think roles and companies that are not necessarily just like for moms, but something that is for children, or, you know, like a totally different industry. Because like before it was all like, it was very like travel and like
Travel,
marketing.
health, yeah, totally. I think that's actually a really good notice, because I was even thinking to myself the other day, because these roles that I've been sort of looking at and being interviewing for, you know, it's either that the product or the company or the industry doesn't interest me at all, and it's like just a job, or it's an industry that I've been in previously that doesn't maybe feel like it fits me as well. So
Yeah.
that's actually a really good point, because I feel like if I maybe directed my search or my sort of endeavors towards companies or, you know, clients even that were more related to sort of me as a person, because
Yeah.
that's exactly what the podcast was birthed from. It was just from a conversation, two mums having a conversation about how the majority of the time we tell people we're fine and we're not. And I think from a mental health perspective, and the fact that you're a therapist, like, I'm sure you see this all the time. Like, people are just walking through their lives, you know, going through the motions and not being honest with people about how things really are. Because I know from my perspective, nobody really knows half of the stuff that I've been going through. But the important thing is that there's a conversation to be had there. But I think from a work perspective, looking for work in a value-based business that actually helps people like me, that's probably a really good direction to take. So
Yeah.
that's a really good notice from you.
Fine is also like a big red flag for me in therapy.
Oh, is it? Oh,
Totally. It's yeah, like you said, fine-ish. Like I have a couple of clients that say it all the time, and I'm like, and it's just like a swear word now. I'm like, okay, so how are you really feeling? And people are always, specifically UK, right?
Yeah.
Very
Yeah.
overused. Fine and sorry. You're not sorry
Yes.
and you're not fine. Stop it.
Agreed. We should just scratch those words from the,
Yeah.
from the vocabulary of
Give
everybody.
them the truth.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Because
Bad and not sorry.
yes, bad, sorry, not sorry.
Yeah, completely.
Totally.
Yeah.
I love this.
And I think yeah, the last like little piece that I just wanted to touch on, which we looked at earlier, is for anyone who is starting this journey right now, and it can be really scary if you're in a job or if you're just unemployed, whatever, what you said earlier about tapping into your network. So
Yes,
Kelly, who gave you such wonderful guidance.
she did.
Yeah. When actually her episode, when I had her on a while ago, is one of my most listened to.
She's amazing.
Like she was really high up at ancestry.com and for like more than a decade. And so she just like, and she went all around the world. She's just done some really cool stuff. But that was her kind of advice at the end, was she said, your network is your net worth. So
Yes.
like nurture your relationships throughout your career. And I can only circle back on that and emphasize that, because so many of the contracts that I've gotten throughout my life is like, I'll put like a shout out on LinkedIn or whatever. And like, that's where most of my stuff has come from, is through people that I know.
Yeah.
So when people are like starting from scratch and they go to jump into like the black hole abyss of like CV eating portals like Indeed.com,
Yes.
etc. Like that's like a last resort. Maybe skim through them, see jobs that you're interested in, and then go directly to those company pages. Putting your CV and creating an account on those pages, they're just data mining. They just
Yeah,
want
I
your
mean,
email.
and also it's a soul crushing process because,
Yeah,
quite honestly, you don't get anywhere quickly. And I
yeah.
think where I have had some good experience with recruiters, and I will say recruiters have been, helpful in the sense that they do some of the legwork for you. But I
Yeah.
agree in that. I mean, I was in a position probably 18 months ago where, yeah, close to 2 years ago, where I had been doing some freelance work for my ex-partner's company for a long time, right? Been very involved in this company.
Mhm.
And when the separation happened, that was very quickly pulled out. The rug was pulled from under me. And I was like, okay, what do I do now? And it really was okay. I know exactly who I called. I called my very, very good friend, Kirsty, who she actually ended up taking a role that I had had when I moved to Australia. And I connected her with a guy who then hired her. And then she's
Mhm.
had this amazing career. And I called her and I was like, Kirst, I don't know what to do. And she basically just gave me a few things that I could do, a few things that I could start with. And so I started there, and I
Mhm.
started just purely reaching out to people I knew who I could provide value for. So, a friend in Australia who had just taken over a business, needed copywriting, website content, all the rest. I actually ended up getting some work through Kirsty, through the company she was working with at the time. I again went into the shop I now work at, and I spoke to Emma, and she needed email marketing, and it was purely just very touch point conversations with people who I knew, I knew I liked and I trusted. And even if it's just sort of asking, do you know anyone that might be looking for somebody with my skill set? And that's where all of my freelance work came from.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good place to start for anyone who's sort of re-entering the workforce, is to just ask the people you already know, who know you, who know what you're good at, and there will inevitably be good opportunities that come from that.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, like, that is the hope as well with the community that is building with Career Congregation.
Yeah,
And that's why I want to start having these like monthly kind of meetups, because
yeah,
everyone can get to know each other, and like everyone's networks will just grow and we can all help
totally.
each other with career, which is, yeah, we have to spend a lot of our lives doing it. So we might as well love what we do,
It's a
right?
jungle out there, and we got to help each other. And I feel like the career congregation work that we did together, and that I still, you're doing through this podcast, is just so valuable. And I know that for me, it was very pivotal in how I'm now shaping a career, in the sense that I know what I want and what I don't want. And I wouldn't have drawn those conclusions as quickly as I did without the support of that network.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
mad
Yeah, well,
props.
and I think it's, there's a very big element. So I try to like lead through example, because it's very much what I'm doing with my own life as well.
Yes,
My
agreed.
friend explained it to me. She didn't explain it to me, but I was having some frustration with trying to communicate what I'm doing with my life, again, with my parents and their friends. And, so it's very hard to explain sometimes to a generation doesn't that has different priorities, right? And my
Agreed.
friend was like, Megan, you are designing your life. This is a privilege that, older generations, or maybe they could have done that too, but they didn't think
Wasn't a
like,
done thing. It wasn't a
yeah.
done thing.
And
Yeah,
well, and the internet has made all of this possible, right? Like, I'm so incredibly grateful to be so connected to the world around me and to have these opportunities. So in the same way that I am, designing my life and trying to figure out where I really want to live, the place that's my soul home and all of that, I think that if we can, why not have the same with career? Like, really write down what you want and figure out a way to design the perfect career for you that works for you. And
Yeah.
it's not going to happen overnight. Like, it's going to be a process. You're going to build and build and build and build, but you've already started. So
Yeah. I feel like I'm on the right track now, and that is a good feeling for
yeah.
sure.
And I really like podcast is the best. I love doing this. I love having these conversations. Every time one drops, I get emails. Like, people are like, "Ooh, I think, can you do an episode about this?" Or like, "Oh, I want to nominate someone to come on." And I've already made like such amazing connections just organically from the listeners. And I'm, connecting with people all around the world. And I know it'll be the same for you. So
Valuable work. And I feel like from a creative perspective, it's really fulfilling, but also giving something back and almost like providing, service to people as a whole. Like, and I know for me, it's women and especially moms. And I think for you, it's like making sure that people are focused on the work that we need to do as humans, and
yeah.
unpicking a lot of this, stuff that we go through in our lives, and we're wandering around blind a lot of the time, but directing our energy to healing and coming through traumatic events of our life. But also this career work is so important. Like, I really think it is very important.
It's intentional, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's so that we're not going around blind and being sheep and like a cog in the machine. Like, it's pulling back and intentionally doing work that's important to you, that's going to improve your mental health, your wellness, and like, in you showing up better and more fulfilled, you will improve the world around you. So
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
yeah. Well, it was wonderful having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, thank you. If people want to connect with you, where should they find you?
Well, you can find us on Instagram, Fineish the podcast. I think it's Fineish _ the podcast. I'll give you the right
I'll put it in
one
the
to put in the show notes. And then we're going to be on Spotify, Apple, wherever you find your podcast, YouTube. And our first episodes will be dropping this side of New Year. So yeah, we're really excited to share it with people, and we hope that it gives some value.
Yeah, exciting. Okay.
Yeah.
And I will have more information about community gatherings for Career Congregation soon, because that is really, I think, going to be a good next step for this community. So
Definitely.
yeah.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. Take care.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode of Career Congregation. I hope it gave you something to think about or inspired you in some way. If you enjoyed this conversation, please take a moment to like, subscribe, or share this episode with someone you think it might resonate with. Every bit of support helps. If you know someone who you think would make a great guest, please send them my way via the link in the show bio. And if you'd like to support the show and the work that I do, you can buy me a coffee via the coffee link also in the show bio. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another conversation about all things career.